Trigger warnings, depression, possible neglect. Original post, September 9, 2024. My ex-wife and I were married for over 20 years and have 2 children together, 22M and 20F. For most of my marriage, things were pretty balanced. We both shared housework and childcare responsibilities. We were each stay-at-home parents for over a year after each child, her with our son and me with our son and daughter. We always had agreements on how we wanted to divide work and generally had decent communication. This changed when my oldest went to high school. My wife got a new job that was both very demanding on her time and was 50% travel. This meant that I had to handle everything about 2 weeks per month, and when she was home she wasn't holding up her side of the work with agreements. I did my best to be accommodating and we worked through redistributing chores/housework a few times to make it fit her schedule better. But a lot of the work just kept falling to me. When the pandemic happened, things got worse, but I tried to just suck it up because I knew the lockdowns were temporary. Finally, when things opened back up, things continued to decline and I asked to go to counseling. She missed a lot of our meetings and just didn't commit to it. At this point I decided that I wanted a divorce. Unfortunately, it was a really tough time for the family. My son was getting ready for college in person after his freshman year being remote, which was both financial and logistical challenge. At the same time, my daughter was also having some issues with depression, and I had become her main support person with my wife gone half the time. I made a decision to wait until my daughter was in a better mental state, and our family was in a financially stable place before I filed for divorce. I did my best to continue to contribute, and was essentially a single parent for 3 years. On a few occasions I brought up counseling again, but my wife said things were good and wouldn't go. We pretty much didn't have sex for that period of time, and there was one summer where she essentially moved to North Carolina for 6 weeks for work. She came home on some weekends. Last year, after my daughter started sophomore year of college, and she was in a better place mentally and emotionally, I sold off some of my stock investments to create a trust for my kids to ensure college was covered. Then I filed for divorce. At first my wife was really pissed, then she left to live in North Carolina again. When she came back 4 weeks later, she said she wanted to work through it, but I told her I had made the decision to leave years ago and wasn't interested. We eventually worked through mediation and got an amicable divorce. My kids live with me now and support me, but all of my in-laws and even most of my family outside of my sister think I'm asshole. They believe I should have forced the issue more when we started counseling and either divorced or made it clearer to my wife how important counseling was to me. They've called me selfish, and some of my in-laws are refusing to interact with my kids when they're at my house. For example, my daughter FaceTimed her grandmother once this summer, and she hung up once she saw that my daughter was at my house. They also created a bit of a scene at my son's graduation in the spring, refusing to acknowledging me and demanding that my son choose to celebrate with them, or me, rather than having dinner together as a group. I encouraged my son to go with them and we had our own celebration later. But something happened at the dinner, and my son has lived with me and been almost no contact with them since. I honestly feel like I did what was best for my kids, but now it feels like their mom's family is punishing them, and I feel like a terrible father. I admit that it might have been more mature to address the issue head-on with my relationship with my ex, but I felt that it was about more than just the two of us. Frankly, I feel like my lack of backbone years ago has made this divorce worse for my kids, but I also believe that if I had to do it again, I would still prioritize my kids over my own feelings and make the same choice. AITA? Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. First off, thanks for folks who provided feedback and comments. I really felt like shit, and both the positive and negative comments helped me get a little perspective on things. I've seen a few comments come up multiple times, so I figure it's worth answering them here. Before I move on, this is an account I created to ask an embarrassing dating question earlier this year. I created it because my main username is recognizable, and I reused it now because I don't really want to air my issues associated with a known username. When my wife took the job, we were doing well financially, but the job still came with a big raise. I was making about $200,000 and the job she took gave her a raise from about $80,000 to $140,000. That was enough that we could go from saving enough to have an emergency fund to having enough to pay for our kids' college outright. We both work in tech, but she works for a defense contractor, and some of the work needs to be done on-site, and only one of the offices related to her work is near where we live. When we originally discussed the job, Her plan was to work in the high travel role for some time, then try to transfer to a lower travel role based near us. She got promoted a few times, and staying near our home wasn't an option unless she took a bit pay and title cut. When we divorced, I was making about $280,000, and she made a little over $300,000. Some folks were also confused by my stock comment. I'm a software engineer for a big tech company, and about 20 to 30% of my salary comes in the form of RSUs, restricted stock units. I'm not an investor by any means, and I was just selling off stock mostly to cover my daughter's college and pay off what debt my son had. I know a lot of people are jumping right to an affair, but I really doubt it. In school, my wife and I were the obnoxious kids who reminded the teacher about homework, and she's a massive introvert. Her working late in a hotel room is much more likely than her sleeping around or keeping some secret family. There's a chance I'm wrong here, but I think this is more a situation where Reddit sometimes thinks all divorces end with infidelity. When I say we had an amicable divorce, I mean that more in the legal sense than the emotional sense. Uncontested might be a better term. The only significant asset we had that wasn't easily split was our home. My wife loves the house, and I frankly wanted something different, so she bought out my portion of it. Our kids are adults, so there's no custody. Our assets are mostly divisible, so no issues there. Our salaries were comparable, so there was no alimony. We each had a car. Overall, it was pretty straightforward to divide things evenly, and neither of us wanted to draw things out. We didn't end the marriage as friends by any means, but from a legal standpoint it was amicable because we decided on arrangement with a mediator and only involved lawyers briefly to actually draft the final paperwork for the judge to sign off on. Additional information from OP on some other questions. OP: why did your wife disappear off to a travel job? Was fun money separate and based on income? My wife has never wanted to be a homemaker/traditional kind of wife, and always placed a lot of value on her career. It's part of the reason I married her. That being said, I never expected her to take a job that had so much travel, and I still don't completely understand why she did it. I think part of it was that she knew things were tough at home and this was an escape. I also know she had mostly younger coworkers, and there was some amount of feeling like a jet setter. Sorry, I can't think of a more current term. Why did you have chore arrangements like you were roommates that were expected to be adhered to even when she got the travel job? I'm not sure exactly what you mean here. I think most relationships include establishing who's responsible for certain chores/work around the house. Also, I obviously didn't expect her to do housework while she was away, but as I said, she didn't really help out when she was back. I didn't expect her to do all the work when she was back or anything, just her fair share when she was home. Why did you have a deleted post from Low Karma about crazy dating misadventures only recently? Because I started dating after the divorce, and being in my 40s trying to figure out dating hasn't gone well. I've addressed this in other comments, but that post was actually the reason I made this throwaway account, and I deleted it when I realized I was really out of touch with current dating norms. What is the reason your side of the family is giving you for being pissed at you as well? My family believes the only reason for divorce is infidelity or abuse. They are pretty conservative/traditional. How did you phrase your request for counseling? Initially it was pretty soft. I mentioned it a few times, but didn't really push. Around 2021, I told her that I felt that our marriage was falling apart, and I told her that I thought the only way to move forward was counseling. She agreed and we started, but as I said in my post, she didn't commit to it. We had Zoom sessions when she was traveling, and she often wouldn't show up. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA, but really, only your kids can answer this question for you. Maybe just point blank ask them, do you think I was wrong to wait till you guys were settled and I was ready, or was it the wrong decision for you? It sounds like you did everything you could and your kids will never forget. It's all done now, forget about it and live life happy. It's what it was all for. OOP. I have checked with the kids and they agree with my decision now, but I also didn't really ask them until after the incident at my son's graduation. That's kind of why I'm doubting things. I waited until my in-laws were jerks before I asked my kids about it, but I can also see how my decisions have at least some impact on my in-laws' behavior. Frankly, it's a mess and I should probably be seeing a therapist rather than talking to Reddit, but sometimes talking to strangers on the internet feels safer. Commenter 2. NTA. So, is your ex-wife okay with everybody treating her kids like that? Is she treating them poorly as well? And you should let her know that counseling was so important to you. No, you shouldn't. No one asks for counseling just because they're bored. And when you asked for divorce, her first reaction was to go to North Carolina again, where, probably, she asked her affair if they can be a public couple now. He may have answered, no, and then she came with, let's work this out. The truth is, if the papers were reversed, no one would be blaming her for wanting a divorce. Don't blame yourself. Everyone, including your kids, are adults now. Ask your kids if they want to do therapy, if they didn't already do, and keep your distance from these people. They are not your family if they are willing to understand you. OP. My ex-wife really doesn't talk to me much, but when I brought up the FaceTime thing, her response was essentially, I don't control my mother. My ex isn't treating my kids poorly, but she also continues to prioritize work over the kids. My daughter is in therapy for her depression, and I've offered to pay for my son to go if he wants to go. Update, December 27, 2024 5 months later. This is an update to https://www.reddit.com/AITA/for_1FCR7LQ/ida_for_my_wife_it_was/I'm still getting comments and messages from time to time about that post, so I figured I would take some time to give an update. Quick summary of the original post. My wife became more and more distant in our marriage and I decided to get a divorce, but I waited about 3 years to do it after I decided because I felt it was best for the kids. My kids chose to live with me and generally were on my side, but my in-laws and family were pretty mad at me. Things are going much better overall since the post. I got a lot of support, but also a lot of criticism which I took to heart. I have been putting in some work to mend fences and help get things to a more reasonable state. I don't expect my ex or her family to be friends with me, but I at least want to be on good terms. My relationship with my parents and family is much better, and this Christmas was pretty much back to normal. My family is very conservative, especially when it comes to marriage, but they finally understand how bad it had become and have reluctantly accepted. My relationship with my ex and more importantly her relationship with our kids has also improved. She has apparently been going to therapy on her own, and while she hasn't gone into details, she does seem to be a lot less angry about what happened. We decided to have Thanksgiving together so we could all talk through things with the kids. It was a bit messy and there were a lot of tears, but we also got to a place where we all understand each other a bit more. We all agree that I shouldn't have waited so long to go through with the divorce, but my ex and kids also say they understand why I did it. My ex-wife and I even had a conversation about dating, which was weird, but surprisingly kind of nice. My ex-in-laws still think I'm a horrible person and most refuse to talk to me, but they have started treating my kids well. My kids went to the in-laws' place for Christmas Eve and told me went okay. We talked about it on Christmas, and while they didn't give many details, they did say they planned to do something on New Year's Eve with my ex and the in-laws, so I'm happy about that. Sorry this isn't a juicy update with anything crazy, but I was bored during the holiday downtime and thought I would log in and post some details. One thing I've learned from this, and I hope others learn too, even if your heart's in the right place, it's probably better to divorce when the marriage is over rather than putting up a facade for years. I don't regret getting a divorce, but I do wish I hadn't waited 3 years when I knew it was over. Top comments. Commenter 1. You shouldn't be bothered by what your ex-il think about you. People who blame children, even almost adults, for the things their father did are not very good at judging people. They are even the real here. Commenter 2. When it's over, it's over. Dragging it out only accumulates damage to someone, yourself, the kids, etc. Glad things are working out for you, and appreciate you sharing your experience and conclusions. Commenter 3. I don't understand anyone saying you did the wrong thing. Ending a marriage with children involved isn't just about ending the marriage, it affects the entire family. Waiting to make sure your daughter's mental health was in a place where it could sustain the divorce wasn't selfish, it was the exact opposite. If you had divorced when you decided you wanted to, and your daughter's mental health had plummeted, then what? The only person inconvenienced was the woman who neglected her marriage and her children, and she'd been inconveniencing you and the kids by abandoning them for years. Please stop feeling any sense of guilt for waiting. You're the only one who did the right thing. Stop apologizing for that.